our first furnace service for the year. I thought I'd bring you along. It's not going to be glamorous by any means. I don't have any specialized equipment here except holding my iPhone in my hand, and frankly it's probably going to be pretty boring, but I just needed some company down here, so I thought I'd bring you along. Maybe something to fall asleep to. But we're gonna dive in here and do a quick service on this thing. Start by turning the power off. This one looks like it's plugged in and doesn't have a switch, so we'll go ahead and power him down. What's that? That's for our pump. Pump can stay on. And let's start with the furnace filter. I kind of like to do things just one step at a time. They're pretty much the same on all of them. Makes things go by a little better. Let's see, it looked like somebody just did this not too long ago, but it's definitely worth changing, especially due to the runtime of these fans on this system. It's got a humidifier. It's attached to an ERV, so the blower runs more than it's off. All filters certainly aren't this easy to change, but at least every furnace that we install or change out, we'll put a filter rack in there, so it makes it a little bit easier. Alright, we're going to dive into the flame sensor. Take both of our doors off here. Flame sensor. It's the easiest thing to clean and is usually the biggest chromatic problem that we actually run into. So you're just gonna have to bear with me here while we take that out. Yeah, this might be good sleeping material. Nothing glamorous. I've been doing this a long time. What is it? 29 years? No, 30 years. 2025. I started right after high school when I went in the Marines as a refrigeration technician. Definitely not glamorous. Probably didn't even think there was such a thing, but that's where I started getting all my schooling for HVAC and whatnot. So we can see this flame sensor. Maybe you can't, but there is some just a little bit of corrosion going on there. And that sometimes is enough that it will not sense the flame and cut the furnace off. I know you can't see it here, but we're using a really light grade steel wool just to clean this thing off. You don't want to use sandpaper or anything too abrasive. Just don't need to really scrub it too hard either, but just a little cleaning. It looks better. Put that back in there. But yeah, I spent 4 years in the Marines as a refrigeration tech. Learned a lot of fundamental stuff like refrigeration cycle, how to use gauges and basic stuff like that. Got out after 4 years, and at least I had some knowledge to transfer into the civilian world, so jumped in with the Ma and Pa heating shop and did that for doing installation, pounding duct, doing some service work for 8 years or so, and then I did spend a little time with facility management, taking care of all aspects of the facilities, but mostly the air conditioning for server rooms and stuff like that. The next thing I move on to is going to be, we've talked about it, is the pressure switch and the tubing associated with that. this being a 90% or greater furnace, usually you could tell based on the PVC flue. And 80% will just have metal pipe. 80% or it's going to have condensate, and that condensate's always going to go to a condensate collector. This is what this one looks like. Every make's different, but they will all have a trap or a condensate trap there that you'll need to clean. So I just start by pulling off hoses to our pressure switches. And I've been doing this long enough, I don't bring compressed gas or air or anything to clean these things out, so I just literally blow through these tubes just to make sure they're clear. Don't blow into the pressure switch. You just want to be blowing through the tubing. And there's going to be different configurations of this little 1/4-inch tubing going all random places. I don't need to detail that, but they're pretty much set up the same. You just want to make sure there's nothing living in here, just cleaning the tubes out. I always like to just gently tap these, because sitting all summer they will sometimes. A little diaphragm in there gets stuck. We're going to take this collector box off after I get a different fit here. Bear with me with my ASMR sleep here. And it's good to have the company. Definitely tried to scale my service back down just to a handful of service stuff, but I am going to have to run out and grab a longer chuck for this, which is always frustrating when you're all the way deep down in the crawl and don't have the tool you need. But I also don't like carrying my huge pack with everything that I usually don't need. I don't know what's harder, having to go all the way back out to the truck to grab a tool or haul around a big tool bag in a crawl space. So I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. I got the appropriate chuck, just a longer 1/4-inch chuck to be able to reach into this box here. Most people say don't use a drill on these. That's probably really good advice, because you don't want to go in too tight, but after doing thousands of these, I know pretty much how far to go and whatnot. So this isn't really a how to do it right deal, but just kind of a casual just breakdown here. I gotta loosen this clamp down there. I have to set you down. Yeah, I just thought I'd start a YouTube channel. Why, I don't know. I just feel like I've been doing this so long that most people deserve just a little bit of knowledge. I mean, it's pretty easy stuff to do, and it saves homeowners a lot of money just by knowing some real basic things, as opposed to relying on AI for information and whatnot, and just have an actual person that's in the trenches doing it. Whether you get anything out of it or not, it just does get kind of lonely, so I figured I'd just start a channel and see what happens. My wife thought I was crazy because I don't even have any social media accounts, but anyways, so here's the collector box on this particular model. This is just what's going to hold the water, and then it's going to go down to a drain. They get pretty scuzzy. This one looks pretty dirty, but I'm not seeing any big chunks, but you do want to rinse this out. So I do have some water down here. Do that real quick. Just clean it out good. Definitely a big problem too is these small holes in the drain in this collection box. After a while it gets plugged up, and then the furnace isn't happy and it goes off on pressure switch, and all it is a bug that got down in here. How bugs get in there, I don't know. So that's where it attaches to. So the condensate from the flue gases will run down, inevitably come out those ports, and then hit this trap. I'll put that bad boy back on there. Man, I haven't had an apprentice in a long time. It just feels like kids just don't want to do trade labor, and it's getting kind of scary because I don't think AI or any computerization is gonna have somebody doing this technical type of stuff. I'm just gonna blow these hoses out one last time, check the little orifices where these hoses connect. Let me just run a little piece of wire in there to make sure there's nothing in there. I'm not sure if you can see this, but these hoses always end up on a little port like that, so I'll just grab a piece of wire and put it in there and clean it out. The big thing is when you take a hose off, just make sure you connect it to the same one. So doing one at a time is probably a good idea. But I know these pretty well, so I know where everyone goes without having to worry about it. That guy in there. Make sure he's clean. That's looking good. Alrighty. Should be pretty happy. If you get into a dirty location, you're gonna wanna check the burner venturis here. And then there are orifices on the back side of this burner tube. But this is clean, and I looked at it earlier with the mirror and everything's looking good. So just give it a good wipe down here. Not any real value to that. You do want to at least make sure your burner compartment's clean. Just usually do a quick visual inspection, and I will get any cobwebs off of the board or lightly blow through it just to make sure, but this is a fairly new system. Make sure my fans wanting a friends or spin free there. I found quite a few mice in these. Squirrels, mice, you bet, anything. So really that's it. And this is 90% as we discussed, so it's got more parts to you want to maintain. But the big thing is definitely going to be your flame sensor. So let's like to do a double check, make sure everything's good, and then we'll jump this thing out and let it run for about 2 minutes just to reprime that condensate trap and make sure we don't have any hiccups here. Find my jumpers. Power this back up, and then we'll jump for the heat, and we're going to do that just between our R and W. This one's got a W2, which is going to be second stage heat, but most furnaces just have a W, a single stage. This one's on a zone system, so it's going to have dual stage depending on how many zones are actively calling, and then it'll bump it up to that next stage to provide a little more heat. Our first stage here, our first step in the ignition process is going to be our inducer motor. It's going to run for about 60 seconds, and then we should see hot surface ignition in here. This is just making sure our pressure switch is going to close and the flue is open, not obstructed. Second is going to be that hot surface igniter, and then our gas valve is going to open. And then it's going to sense flame and service this humidifier, which has a fault. 1, 2, 3. I don't remember what 3 is. These things got computer boards in them, so they could be temperamental, as with most newer things with computer boards. Insufficient current, so I've seen that before. It's usually just a glitch, so we're just going to reset this guy. Hold the button in for about 10 seconds. And then I'm going to push it again, so this will start draining, because that water in that canister is looking a little gross, and we'll switch it out with the new canister and see if that fault won't go away. And yes, I have left jumpers on equipment before. Not gonna lie, that's really embarrassing. You leave and your jumpers are still on and you get a call at 10 o'clock saying the house is 90 degrees, so I only carry one pair with me. And keep them in my pocket, and that's the last thing I check when I'm done with the service, if I have those, because that is the first call to me. Alright, this guy's looking good, so I'm gonna pause this for a minute while that drains, and we'll swap out that can, and that is it. Of course, there's a lot of other things you could do, but just for a real quick service, I'll check that. It's gonna do filter, your flame sensor, making sure your hoses are clean. Okay, so I did drain this canister, and one thing about the water we have here is it's pretty hard. So when we get those faults like this one, insufficient current, put a little salt in there, not a lot, but just a little salt in the canister, and that softens it up, and then it does at least gets it so it'll take off and pretty well be stable throughout the life of the can. So I don't know if you can see, but it is boiling in there. I did just jump this out here just to bring it on. We also put pressure switches in the ductwork on these. I have that jumped out just to bring the humidifier on, but what that does is it adds a safety. So if the blower stops running, then your humidifier will shut off. Otherwise, the humidifier would just run wild and you'd have a whole mess. If the blower's not on, it would just saturate the ductwork. And one other thing is what we like to put in the return air, is that senses the humidity in the air, and we'll set that at, I don't know, no more than 35 where we're at here, just because it gets so cold in the winter that we don't like a lot of condensation on the windows. And that just is kind of another secondary safety where we can pretty much control that out of the homeowner's view, because they'll like to put it up to extravagant amounts and then wonder why they've got rain clouds formed in their house, and then of course that destroys furniture and everything else. So that gives us a little peace of mind knowing that we're never gonna have a really high humidity. But just a real quick rundown on all this. I doubt anybody's gonna watch this to the end. It's definitely pretty boring, but I'm just an average guy telling my story, and like I said, at least get some company down in this lonely crawl space here. This house here has 5 systems and about 16 zones, I believe. That's what this guy here is our zone valve, or not zone valve, but zone panel controller. Just thermostats wire into each section there, and then open an air damper accordingly. And if I keep doing this, definitely jump into that a little bit more. There's a lot of moving parts in these systems. Even on the AC side, we've got a condensate overflow, and then freeze stat. There's various safeties and whatnot on these, but it's been fun, and I've got 4 more of these to do in this lovely crawl space, and I'll see you guys on the next one.